Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Rami Eid. Today, we are presenting Introduction to Mud Logging. This talk will be presented by Dr. Ashraf Alshorbagy. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your zone control panel. I will bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have a time for questions at the end. We will turn the time over to Dr. Ashraf Alshorbagy. Our presenter today has more than 23 years of experience in oil field focusing on surface data logging, SDL, and formation pressure evaluation, drilling optimization, and worked as global senior instructor. Dr. Ashraf worked at USA, Houston, UK, Aberdeen, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Pakistan, Oman, Egypt, Libya, Abu Dhabi, and he worked for different scale companies like Agip, Arco, British Petroleum, and IOC, Rashpetco Petrobil, Gapco, and Benzoil, Caron, Khalda Petroleum companies. Dr. Ashraf is teaching well site reservoir dynamics, drilling and well control operation geology and petroleum technology at Alexandria University. Thanks, Dr. Ashraf, for accepting our invitation. And now is your time.
Okay, thank you, Rami. Hello, everyone. How are you today? Hope you're feeling good. And I hope you like this presentation. Today, we're speaking about the mud logging, the introduction for mud logging. Starting for our objectives today, introduction, we're speaking about the importance of mud logging in the oil field. Rig component, we'll speak about rig component in brief, and we'll speak in detail about the sensors, and later we'll speak about the SDL responsibility. Starting with the evolution of the mud logging. The evolution of the mud logging is starting from about 1900. At this time, starting drilling with rotation. From 1910, we're starting the geologist and the engineering starting to working in the exploration. And at 1920, they thinking to get the information from the well by the invention of modern core barrel. Starting drilling the well using the core barrel was very, very expensive. We lost the time, we lost the money. And so after about 10 years, at 1930, starting to using the electric logging. Also the electric logging have disadvantage because all the information we got by the electric logging is getting after drilling the hole. And what we need and our target while drilling, we need the information directly, which coming from the bottom as real time. It comes the information during drilling. And so at 1939, we're starting the mud logging. Mud logging is starting as example in Halliburton by John Howard. And this guy, which is the manager of the Baroid logging system, which now becoming a Halliburton company. For the mud logging, we're starting to get the information from the bottom during the drilling process. And so our question now, for the mud logging, how we can get the data directly from the bottom while drilling? And so the mud logging theory, what is the theory? Just if we go to this picture, we see here, of course, you know what about the circulation system, starting with bumping the mud in the hole, as you see by the cursor, the mud coming and pass through the nozzle of the bit, and the bit here start to crushing the formation and give a cutting. The mud is starting to lifting the cutting in the annulus, this space, which is between the drill string and the inner diameter of the hole. The cutting is moving up, 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 and go to the flow line, and later on is go to the shell shaker. From the shell shaker, they starting the mud logging to catch the cutting, catch the sample, and they start to make presentation and analysis for the cutting. And so in the mud logging, we're using the stream of the mud to get the information while drilling. By what? By analysis of the cutting, which coming in the shell shaker, by analysis of the gases, which coming with the mud, and so extract the information which is delivered from the returning mud. And so the theory of the mud logging just coming from what? From the mud which coming from the bottom to the surface. That's the theory. What is the meaning of surface data logging? Surface data logging, or SDL, is the mud logging. And so mud logging is the same as the surface data logging. How it's working? One of the guy asking me why it's called SDL, surface data logging. If we explain this sentence, you see that we're starting to logging the data from the surface. From the surface is meaning is that all our sensor in the mud logging, all the sensor already at the surface of the rig. And so there is no any downhole sensors. And so it's called surface data logging. And by the surface data logging or the mud logging, we can watch, we can see what's happened at the bottom of the well. How come? If I have a sensor at the surface, can I know what's happened at the bottom? Yes, we can do that. And I'll explain later in the next slides. The mud logging is not only watching or monitoring the drilling, but also he have to take all the data and start to make analysis for this data and pass all the data to the customer. That's the theory, and that's what's the meaning of the surface data logging, or SDL, which is the mud logging. The mud logging unit or SDL unit at the rig have to be communicate with all the surface on the rig. Have to be communicate with the mud engineer, communicate with the company man, communicate with the tool pusher and geologist, communicate with the rig floor, with any third-party company, and communicate, of course, with all the sensors which we are using to monitor the well. What is the importance of the mud logger? If you're asking yourself, why is the customer asking for mud logging? Why is he paying money for the mud logging? It's very, very important, and mainly, no rig or no well can be drilled without the mud logging, especially for exploration well. The question why? First one, for well site safety by continuous monitoring the well. And so the mud logging have to monitor the well every time for any operation, even if the operation is wet on weather, the mud logging have to monitor the tanks and the beds. Okay, what about the safety? I'll give you only one example. Say while drilling, we have some gases which is in flux coming inside or coming into the well. What will happen? These gases will be moving up with circulation, will be expanded, and when it's coming to the surface, maybe blow out and they make fire. And so the mud loggers have to be monitor the gases, and they have to inform the company representative and inform the driller that there is something wrong. We have a safety here, we have a gain, and so I have to inform the guys that we have a gain, and so it's very important as safety. Also, the customer asking mud logging for economy. Why? The customer asking for the mud logging for what? Time is money. And any non-productive time, which is NBT, any non-productive time is meaning that we are lost time, is meaning that we are lost money. And so the mud logging units and the mud logger have to inform the guys that there is a problem. This problem, will we stop the drilling? And so it will cost money. I'll give you one example. Say, if while drilling, we have a small crack in the string. If the mud logger not detect this crack, what will happen? The crack will be increasing, and later on, the string will be completely twist off. It's meaning that it will break, twist off, and falling in the bed. And so we have to go to fishing, and it's very, very expensive. And so it's very important as economy for the customer. The third one, mud logging have to make evaluation for the reservoir. While drilling, we have a cutting, this cutting coming to the shell shaker, and we have gases is coming to the unit, mud logging unit, and so the mud logger have to make analysis for these gases, especially for the reservoir, to make qualitative evaluation for the reservoir. The last one, for better and quick decision making. Sometimes when we drilling any well, we can stop the drilling according to the mud logging units. Why? If the pore pressure or the formation pressure increase and we can drilling more and more, and so the mud logging unit will inform the guys that we have to stop drilling here and run with the casing. That's a decision. And so it will save the money and save the time. That's the importance of the mud logging for the customer. What is the responsibility? Guys, for the responsibility of the mud logger, and take care, when I speak about mud logger, is meaning the engineering which is working in the mud logging units. Okay. And also we can, instead of say mud logger, we can say surface data logger, the same. Surface data logger is the same as the mud logger. What is his responsibility? I have a lot of points, but for this slide only, I'll give you only one example to explain after this what is the meaning of the sensors. It's related to this slide. To monitor the well condition, the mud logger have responsibility to monitor the influx or loss event. What's the meaning of influx and what the meaning of loss? Influx is meaning that the formation pressure higher than the hydrostatic pressure of the mud in the well, and so the influx started to intrude into the well. And this influx may be gases, may be water, may be oil. And so it's very, very dangerous, especially if it was gases. And so the mud logger, his responsibility is informed that I have increasing in the bed, I have a gain, I have influx. And the well bore also, he have to say that I have some sensor. This sensor tell me that I have a gain. And so that's his responsibility. Also, if I have losses, which is very, very important. If you are drilling in the reservoir, and in the reservoir, as we know, maybe the reservoir is good, have a high porosity and a high permeability, and so may have some losses. And if the losses is severe, it will be damage the reservoir. And so it's one of the responsibility to what? To detect the influx and detect the losses. Also, the mud logger have to check the gas or monitoring the gases. If you have the gases, you have to tell and check what about these gases, what is the zone of the gases, if there is any oil shows or not. Also, the mud logger have to monitor all the time all the rig parameter. What is the meaning of rig parameter? Rig parameter like the hook load, like the torque, RPM, ROB, weight on bed, flow out, all of this is rig parameter. One of the very important responsibility of the mud logger is monitor all of this drilling parameter. Okay. Our question now, I am in the surface and I have some losses downhole. How can I detect and how can I know that there is a losses downhole? That's because we're using what is called the sensors. The sensors for SDL, as I told before, all the sensors at the surface, no downhole surface for the mud logging or the SDL. To speak about the sensor, I'll go and a very, very fast revision about the rig types, about the rig component, and from the rig component, I will speak about the sensors, type of sensor, and where we can fix the sensor in the rig component. As you know, rig types, we have land rig and we have offshore rig. For the land rig, of course, maybe in the desert, maybe in the farm, maybe beside the water. For the offshore rig, we have jackup rig, we have semi-submersible rig, we have floating rig. This is common rigs. Okay. What about the sensors? Oh, to speak about the sensor, I have to speak about the rig component. What about the rig component? Rig component for all the rigs, any rigs in the world have to have 5 component or 5 system. The first system is the power system. No rig can working without power system. Hoisting system. No rig can working without hoisting system. Rotating system. Circulating system. And yes, the blowout preventer system. For the power system, we don't have any sensor in the power system, just power coming from the generator to the rig directly. For the hoisting system, just to make revision with you, the hoisting system, which is responsible for what? Oh, for raising or lowering the drill pipe or the casing or the tubing coming up and down. And so when we're speaking about the hoisting system, I have to know the component of the hoisting system. First, which is the draw work. Draw work, which is this one, contain drum inside the draw work. In the drum, we wanted here the drilling line. The drilling line is the first line to the crown. From the crown to the traveling block, back to the crown, to the traveling block, and so on. And later, we go to the what is called dead line, because this line is not moving. And here we have the anchor. That's what is called the hoisting system. And so, draw work, drilling line, crown block, traveling block, and later we have here the hook. Okay, one of you will ask me why make revision for the hoisting system, because when I'm starting to speaking about the sensor, I will tell you where our sensor will be fixed. Will be fixed here or will be fixed here, and so I have to know the hoisting system. The other system, which is the rotating system. Of course, when you are drilling in a well, we need rotation. The rotation will be through what is called the top drive, which is directly fixed to the hook here, traveling block, or we can rotate through what is called the rotary table. What is the rotary table? We are rotating the string from the rig floor itself, not from the traveling block. Okay, how the rotation happen here? Very fast, I revision. Okay, first, the rotary table, which is this one, will be started to rotate. And so this one was called master bushing, will be fixed inside the rotary table. And so if the rotary table is rotate, the master bushing will rotate. And then we will fix the key bushing inside the master bushing. And inside the key bushing will fix the key. And so the rotation at the bottom, how it's come, starting with rotate the rotary table. And so master bushing will rotate, key bushing will rotate, the key will rotate, and the key is connected to the pipe, the drilling pipe or the string, and so we can rotate the string and the bit. That's for the rotating system. The fourth system, which is circulation system, which is very important, and we have a lot of sensors which is fixed here in the circulating system. The circulating system, if we're starting here from the bit or the tanks, which contain the mud will be sucked by the suction pump here or the sludge pump. And after this pump will start to push the mud through the stand pipe. And guys, please focus with me here in the circulating system, because we have a lot of sensor here. We have in the bit first, and after this to the pump. And from the pump, the mud is moving to the stand pipe. And from the stand pipe, the mud is moving to the rotary hose through the drill string. And from the string is go through the nozzle of the bit and coming out here to the annulus, which is the space between the string and the hole. The mud is moving in the annulus till it comes to the flow line or the return line. And after this is go to the shale shaker, the shale shaker. And this one is the fourth system, which is the circulating system. The last system, which is one of the component of the rig component, is the blowout preventer of the BOPs. The blowout preventer, as you see here, is fixed at the top, at the wellhead, and the BOP contain what's called the annular preventer, which is rubber, pipe ram, which is the shot in the well, close the well. When we have a pipe inside the well, pipe ram, shot in the well, blind ram, which is shot in the well. If we have any gases coming to the surface, we have to shot in the well by blind ram. And the blind ram shot in the well when there is no any drill pipe inside the well. And the last one is the shear ram, which is the shearing the drill pipe and the shot in the well. Guys, just for the component, rig component, I'll go very fast because I know that you already got a presentation about this, but I have to explain what about our sensors. And so, if we go directly to the sensors, I'll go back to the rig component. First, that's the rig. As you see, the rig. I have here shell shakers. Here is the tanks, the pumps, and we'll see now what about our sensor and what the sensor which we are using to monitor the well. One of the responsibility of the mud logger is monitoring the well and monitoring all the drilling parameter. First one, if we go again to the hoisting system, let's remember, hoisting system, the draw work and the drilling line, the crown, and the hook, and the traveling block. Okay, our sensor, or the hook load sensor, is fixed here. Where? It's fixed on the dead line. It's about 3 feet from the anchor. And so, what is the shape of this sensor? There's different type of sensor, but I give you only one example, which is advanced one. It's called the brake sensor. This sensor is already fixed on the dead line and used for what? What is the function of this sensor? Lot of function, but for the time being, I'll give you only one or two. First one, he can calculate the hook load. What is the hook load? What the meaning of hook load? Is meaning the load of anything which is connected to the hook. And so, say now, the hook here, I have the traveling block, have hook. Say you have here in the hook, I connected top drive. And after this, I connected the drill pipe to drilling the well. And so, what about the reading of the hook load? The hook load will reading the weight of all this thing, the top drive and the drill pipe. What is the importance of hook load? Why it's important while drilling? It's very, very important because say while drilling, we got a problem with the drill pipe, have a crack in the drill pipe, and after the crack in the drill pipe, we have crashing or twist off, is meaning part of the drill string will be fall in the bed. And so what will happen? Oh, the hook load instead of 100 kilopound, the weight will be decreasing. It's meaning that I get a problem. And so hook load will give me indication or monitor that we have a problem with the string itself. Also, if we are running hole or pull out of hole, what the meaning of pull out of hole? If we need to pull out with the string, say to change the bit, while pull out of hole, there is what is called the tight hole. What is the tight hole? We have some formation which is make it tight in the hole, like that. And so when the bit is starting to moving up, it will be obstructed. And so when we're moving with the hook load up, the hook load will be increasing, will be very high. And so at this time, I have to inform the guys, the driller, that we have what is called overpull, which is very high, and we have to stop pull out of hole and working on this tight hole. Because if we still and going to pull out of hole, maybe twist off or crashing the string. And so I can monitor the hook load from my sensor at the deadline. The second sensor in the hoisting system, which is the Deepsea Sensor. Where we are fixed our Deepsea Sensor? Deepsea Sensor is fixed here in the draw work. And that's the shape of the Deepsea Sensor. Okay, what is the theory of this sensor? Just see measuring the counts. When the drum is moving clockwise or anti-clockwise, it will be count how many count, and in the software we change the count to feet or to meter, and so we can take the depths, which is very important. And so I can monitor the depths or the bit depths using the Deepsea Sensor. That's for the hoisting system. Let's go to the second system, which is rotating system. If we're starting to rotating the string, make rotation, which called the RPM, how many rotation per minute, from the top drive. And so I have a sensor here in the top drive. In the top drive, we have a shaft. This shaft is rotated. I fixed my sensor, and this different type of sensors, that's one of them. I fixed my sensor in the top drive to give me how many RPM, how many revolution per minute here. Is important? Yes, of course. Why? Because when you are drilling soft formation or drilling hard formation, we need to change the RPM, which may be using this sensor to give me counts, how many RPM per minute. Also, if you are rotation, we are rotating the string by 100 RPM, 100 revolution per minute. And suddenly the RPM is decreasing, become 50 or 60. I have to inform the guy that I have installing of the string. And so it's very, very dangerous. And so the driller have to stop rotating and start to working on the hole. And so I have here in the rotating sensor system, I have a sensor which called RPM sensor. And you see what is the importance of this sensor. In the rotating system also, I have what's called torque sensor. Torque. What is torque? This sensor like that, this sensor is fixed here at the rig floor and give me indication that we have some resistance to rotation. And so the torque is function of RPM. When the string started to rotate, I have reading to the torque. Okay, if in normal case, I have a torque, say 1000 amps, or I would say 50 or 55 amps. And so the value of this amps started to decrease or increase very much, or suddenly give drastic change, is meaning that we have a problem. And the torque also can give me indication that I have the problem with the tri-cone bit. If the tri-cone bit have a problem in the cones itself, and so the torque will be starting to increase and decrease, give me abrupt change in the torque, is meaning that I have a problem with the bit itself. And so I can monitoring the condition of the bit also through the torque sensors. When you go to circulating system, let's go and remember, circulating system is starting from the bits or the tanks here. Do we have any sensors in the bits? Yes, we have what is called bit volume sensor. This bit volume sensor fixed here at the surface of the bit, and this one of the sensors, and this sensor is fixed here. That's the shape of the tanks, and I put my sensor here. Okay, what is the importance of the sensors? Why is the bit volume sensor important? Yes, of course, very important. Give me indication that if you have a gain, if you have losses, and so it's very important to monitoring the bit gain and the bit losses. In the circulating system also, I have bump stroke sensor. Okay, let's go back and remember what about the circulation system. The circulation system is starting from the bits or the tanks. Already I put my sensor, and after this I have a bumps. Oh, the bumps have sensor in the bumps. Yes, I have this sensor. That's the shape of the sensor, one of the sensor, of course, and this sensor is fixed here on the bumps. Okay, what is the function of this one? Give me how many stroke per minute. When the bump is moving, the movement of the bump will be forward and backward, and the one is called stroke, one stroke. When the bump moving, one stroke, and so the bump sensor here will give me one stroke, give me one reading. And so this sensor used to give me how many stroke per minute for the bumps. For the circulating system also, after the bumps started to bump the mud to, can you remember? Yes, starting from the bed, go to the bump, and from the bump we go to the what's called the stand pipe. What is the stand pipe? It's a pipe here, steel pipes at the side of the derrick here, which is pumping the mud in this stand pipe. We have a sensor. The sensor is fixed, as you see here. Our sensor, mud logging sensor, is fixed where at the line or the manifold of the stand pipe. Okay, what is the importance of this one? Why stand pipe pressure is very important sensor? First, if we have any crack in the string, the reading of the stand pipe pressure sensor will be decreased. And so something is wrong. I have to monitor. If we have any influx, what will happen for the stand pipe pressure? The stand pipe pressure will be decreased. And so I have to monitor the kick or the gain. Okay, what about the choke pressure sensor? Okay, we have also sensor. It's called the choke pressure. Where we are fixed this sensor? This sensor, we are fixed as the annulus, which is the space between the drill string and the inner of the hole. We have a mud. This mud, we have sensor at the surface because this sensor is very important to measuring any increase in the pressure while what? While shot in the well. While shot in the well. And so when if we have any kick, the first action when we have a kick, we have to shot in the well by the BOB. When shot in the well, we still have the influx coming inside the well, and so we can measuring the pressure of the influx by using what is called the choke pressure sensors. Okay, that's already still in the circulating system. What about the flow out sensor? Let's go. After we go to the standby pressure in the circulating system, we go to the inside the string, and from the string, the mud is go through the annulus, and from the annulus, the mud will be moving to the flow line, which is this one, this line. In the flow line or return line, we are fixed our sensor here, which is flow out sensor, and that's one of the sensor of the flow out. We have different type of sensor. This one of them, we are fixed in the flow line. What is the function of this one? What is the importance of this one? The first sensor which detect the gain or detect losses is the flow out sensor. It's very, very important sensor to detect the gain. If we have increasing in the reading of the flow out, is meaning that we have kick or we have a gain. If we have decreasing in the reading of the flow out sensor, maybe is due to losses in the well. After we go through the flow out, the mud will go to directly to the shell shaker. In the shell shaker, of course, you know the shape of the shell shaker. That's the shell shaker. At the top of the shell shaker here, we have what is called the bosom belly. It's called bosom belly, or it's called header tank, shaker header tank. At the bottom belly or at the header tank, we have here temperature out sensor to give us the temperature of the mud. We have density out sensor, which have reading the density. And we have a very, very important sensor, which is the gas trap. All of this sensor already fixed here at the bosom belly. That's the temperature. That's for the density out. And this one is the gas trap. And for the gas trap, I explain in detail why. Because for the mud logging, it's the only one which can detect the gases in the mud logging. There is no one in the rig can say that we have gases, and there is no one in the rig can tell me what about the type of the gases, what is the percent of the gases, what is the component of the gases. And so, guys, I'll go to speak about the gas extraction. What is the meaning of gas extraction? Sensors, yes. What is the function of this one? This one is starting to extract the gases from the mud. Extract the gases from the mud. The first one, which is the old one, which is the gas trap. The gas trap, this one, we are already fixed at the bottom belly as a shell shaker. And inside the gas trap, we have impeller. This impeller starts moving very fast and so start to extract the gases. the gas is coming up here, and they will start to transport the gases in this line and go to the unit using a suction pump. Just the gas trap to extract the gases from the mud, and after this, these gases will be transported to the unit using a suction pump. More advanced gas extraction device, which is used at Halliburton company, is called the CVE, or constant volume extraction. More advanced? Yes, more advanced. Why? Because the gas trap is affected by the level of the mud. When the level of the mud in the bottom belly in the shell shaker increasing or decreasing, it will affect and the reading of the gas. And so we're using now what is called the CVE, or constant volume extraction. What the function of this one? Already extract the gases from the mud, but using a constant volume. Even if the volume of the mud increase or decrease at the shell shaker, it will not affect in the reading of the gas. Later on, in Halliburton also using another extractor, which is Eagle. It's called Eagle. This device extracted the gases from the mud, but the advanced, why? Because he is extracted from constant volume of mud. And so if the volume of mud increase or decrease will not affect the reading of the gases, and to also have a stable or fixed temperature. And so it's called Eagle, which take or extract the gases from the mud, and the mud fixed volume and temperature. Just as the gases extracted from the shell shaker started to moving, going to the unit. When the gases arrive to the unit, inside the unit we have some equipment to reading the gases. We have one of the equipment is called the total hydrocarbon analyzer. It just to give you what is the percent of the gases which coming to the unit. But this one is total. And so I have say 6% of gases coming to the unit. Okay, what about these gases? Of course, it's hydrocarbons. But what about the component of these gases? We have a device or equipment, it's called the gas chromatograph. The gas chromatograph already take 5% and they started to make analysis for this gas. And so the gas chromatograph will tell me that you have C1, methane, ethane, propan, butane, pentane. And so he can give me 5 components of the hydrocarbons. Another one, which is more advanced device, it's called mass spectrometer. It gives me about 40 components. We have also some devices or some equipment to measuring the CO2 or carbon dioxide detector, measuring the CO2, carbon dioxide. And also we have H2S, which measuring the H2S gases by using sensors. And so guys, for the mud logging unit or the mud logger, you have to check everything in the unit, starting from the drilling parameter, going through the gases, and give me the component of the gases also. Okay, let's go and see what is the responsibility of the mud logger. What is the responsibility of the SDL, mud logging units? First one, the guys or the mud logger, or we say surface data logger, the same as the mud logger, he gathering the logging information. He gathering all the drilling parameter. He gathering all the gas detection, the units and the component, and started to plotting this data and plotting a log for this data and started to produce it to the customer. As example, if we see this one, we have a log here. In this log, we have drilling parameter. We have the gases as a percent, total gases, say 5%. And here we have the component of the gases. And they give me also, it's according to the customer. If the customer asking what about the percent of the limestone and the percent of the dolomite, the mud logger can plotting it. And this one of the responsibility to prepare the mud log to the customer. Second one, you have to prepare the report every day according to the customer. Maybe this report may be daily, maybe every 6 hours, maybe every 12 hours according to the customer. And these reports contain all the data, starting from the client name, the field name, all of this stuff, and going through the whole size, going to the bit parameters, going through the drilling parameter, all drilling parameter, and mention the gases. And later we have to speak about the operation and what the problem which happened through the day or through the 6 months. And this one of the responsibility to prepare the mud log and to prepare the report. Second responsibility for the mud logger, responsible for all the time, which is very important. You have to monitor the drilling parameter. You have to see if there is any problem happen. You have to inform the driller. You have to inform the company man about any change in the parameter which is anomaly, which is drastic. And so he plotting a log. This log is real time. Real time is meaning that you see every time, and the plotting here all the data, the hook load, the torque, the RPM, the flow out, the flow in, sample pressure, the gases, the bit volume. Any change in any one of the parameter, the mud logger is responsible for that. You have to check this change and have to see why is changed. You have to check with the driller, the mud engineer, with all the people, and see there's no problem, it will be good. And so it's very important rules or very important responsibility is checking all the drilling parameter and the bit volume and the gases and all of this stuff. One also of the responsibility of the mud logger is interpreted logging. What's the interpreted logging? You have to see the gases, which is very, very important. If we have any gases, the mud logger have to check the cutting, which is coming from the bottom, and have to describe this cutting and check if they have any oil shows in the cutting or not. And with this intervals, if you have any gases at this interval or not, and starting to plotting the log to the customer. And if we give example here at this depth, which is 6,050, we have some oil shows here. And so the mud logger have to plotting here and inform it that we have some oil shows in the log, and they started to describe it. You have to make a remark or description for the oil shows. That's one. And you have to inform it that we have high gases with this interval of the oil shows. We have high component of the gases with the oil shows. It's his responsibility. And after this, you have to plotting another log. This log will show the gas ratio. The gas ratio log. The gas ratio log give indication, but take care, guys. Give qualitative, not quantitative, qualitative evaluation to the reservoir. He plotting this log to see the ratio between the component, and from this ratio, we can say that we have gases or we have oil, we have condensate from the gas ratio log, and this log is passed to the customer. Also, for the responsibility of the mud logger, he has to monitor any required surface from the customer. Maybe sometimes the customer asking the mud logger and tell him that at depth 10,000 feet, I need to stop drilling. I need to collect mud sample, gas sample, spot sample, different type of sample. And so the mud logger have to monitor at this time and have to apply the required the customer. The last one for the responsibility now, the mud logger have to check the lag time and have to collect the samples from the shell shaker, and after that have to plotting the sample in the log and write the description of this one. What's the meaning of lag? Very fast. I know the time is very tight, and so I'll go very fast to give you what's the meaning of lag. Lag, as you see here in the circulation system, the mud is coming from the string, and here we have cutting from the bit, and so the lag time is the time which we need to moving the cutting from the bottom to coming to the surface. I'll give you example to be clear. If now we are drilling at depth 20,000 feet, okay, and this cutting will coming to the surface, what is the lag time? The lag time, say we need 1 hour to moving the cutting and the gases from the bottom to the surface. This time is called the lag time. How this one is calculated? Of course, the system calculate it, but to take very, very fast, we can calculate the annular volume here between the string and the inner diameter of the hole. We can calculate the annular volume here. Okay, how can we calculate? From the equation. Inner diameter of the hole minus outer diameter of the string multiply by the total length divided by constant. And so from here, we can calculate how many barrels here. Say we have 500 barrels of mud here, okay? And so calculate the annular volume. When the annular volume divided by the pump output, it gives me what is called the lag stroke. What is the pump output? As we say, any pump contains pistons. This piston is moving forward and backward. When it moving backward, it started to suction the mud from the bits inside the cylinder. When you moving forward, this valve will be closed and this valve will be open, and the mud will be moving in the direction of the standby pressure and the string. And so the pump, the triplex pump, contains 3 pistons. The 3 pistons, when moving forward and backward, it's called 1 stroke. It's called 1 stroke. And so, how many barrels with 1 stroke? How many barrels the pump is pushing with only 1 stroke for the piston? And so, say 0.8 barrel per stroke. And so, I take the annular volume divided by the pump output, it will give me lag in a stroke. And so, I'll calculate how many stroke here we need to move this cutting from the bottom to the surface. How many stroke of the pump? And so the pump will moving how many stroke to moving the cutting from the bottom to the surface. Okay, if we need this lag by time, we take the value of the lag stroke and divided the lag stroke, which are calculated, say 10,000 stroke, we divided by the pump rate. What is the meaning of pump rate? Oh, how many stroke per minute? The pump moving how many stroke per minute, which called the pump rate. And so if I say 100, and so the lag stroke divided by pump rate, which is stroke per minute, will give me what is called lag time. And from here, I know that the lag time, which is the time which we need to moving the cutting from the bottom to the surface, we need 1 hour. We already calculate, we calculate. Okay. What about the mud logger? If the cutting take delay time more than 1 hour, is meaning that something is wrong. What is wrong? The hole is washed. What's meaning of hole is washed? The hole is enlargement like that. And so instead of the cutting coming to the surface in 1 hour, it will take more time, maybe coming in 1 hour and 10 minutes or 15 minutes. The logger, it's responsibility to check the lag to be sure that the cutting will come on time exactly. From the responsibility of the mud logger also, he have to collect the sample. Collect the sample, as we know, the drill bit start to crushing the cutting, the formation, and this cutting will coming to the surface at certain lag time. When coming, go through the flow line, and from the flow line, it will be at the shell shaker. That's the shell shaker. And so the mud logger or the sample catcher take 2 types of sieves. One is fine and one is coarse, and they start to washing the sample, and they take the sample to the unit to start to describe the unit, which called sample description. For sample description in the unit, we need some equipment. First one is the microscope, binocular microscope. This microscope is 10x, magnification is 10. And so first one, we have the microscope. In the unit, we have some tools like what is called 5 compartment tray, which is this one. or this one. This one is plastic. And we put here in this one 5 interval of sample. What's meaning of 5 interval of sample? Say now, we are drilling 2 depths, 10,000 feet, okay? And the customer asking, we have to collect sample each 10 feet. And so, the first sample I put here is 10,000 feet. And the second one will be 10,010, 10,020, 30, 40. And so I bought 5 different samples in the 5 compartment tray and they started to compare, use it to compare, especially see the trend of change of the color of the cutting itself. That's one of the equipment which we use to sample description. Second, we're using what is called stainless steel tray. This one, we washing the sample and put only one layer of the cutting, which coming from the bed and coming to the shell shaker, and they start to put this tray below the microscope, and by light was starting to describe the sample. It's called a stainless steel tray. Also, we use what is called the sample pick, or it's called the probe. This one, like a needle. This one we're using to check the hardness of the formation. If we're speaking about the sample description, we have to check the hardness. Is the formation is hard or soft or firm? And so we're using the sample pick to check the hardness of the formation. We're using also what is called a spot dish. A spot dish, this one, just we go to the tray, by the forceps we take some cutting, and put the cutting here in the spot dish and adding some chemicals to check the rock or check the formation. And so a spot dish we're using sometimes in some manuals, it's written as reaction plate because we put the cutting here and using some chemicals to see is this cutting will react or not with the chemicals. That's one of the equipment. Also, we're using the forceps, it's normal one. This one is used to transport or moving the cutting from the tray to the spot dish. Moving the cutting from the tray to the spot dish. It's not using to check the hardness. The hardness, we use the probe. Okay, that's applicators. We put here the chemicals. We have some chemicals we have to use to describe the samples. If we need to heating the samples, sometimes we need to heating the sample. And so we have to use what's called watch glass. This one, we put the cutting inside it and put some chemicals. And they started to heating in what's called the hot plate to heating the glass or the watch glass and the samples. Okay, this all, guys, is what is examination tools. These tools which you're using to examination or describe the samples. Question. Now we need to describe samples. Do we need any chemicals to describe sample? Of course we need chemicals. Okay, what is the chemical which we need? First one, which is the hydrochloric acid, which is 10%. Okay, we need this one, yes. We need for what? Oh, we need the hydrochloric acid for identification of the carbonate rock. And we use it to differentiate between limestone and the dolomite. Also, we have what's called alizarin S. This chemicals is used to identify limestone, We have what's called the phenolphthalein chemicals, used for what? If we, after we finish casing and we start to drilling the hole, sometimes we have some cement in the tray, in the cutting, and so we can using phenolphthalein to describe or to check the cement. When we adding phenolphthalein to cement, it will give me what is this color, which is the purple color with the cement only. We're using barium chloride as chemicals to identify sulfate rock, like what, like anhydride, like gypsum. Yes, we're using barium chloride. We're using water because when we check the color of any rock below the microscope, we have to be fresh, we have to be wet, we have to adding water, and also we can use the water to check some type of shell. Later on, we're using chemicals which are called isopropyl alcohol or isopropanol. This one is used to check the oil shows. And so guys, now we go with the mud logger to the shell shaker. We already collect the sample, washing the sample, and go inside the unit. And inside the unit, we see what is the tool which we use to check the samples. And after this, we see what is the chemicals which we use to check the samples. After finish, we start to describe the sample. When we describe the sample, we have to go through all of these steps. Of course, the time is very tight. And if I start to describe the sample, I have to describe sandstone alone, clay stone, limestone, evaporites, all of this stuff. And so I'll give you just general information about the sample description, because it will take a lot of time. When we describe a sample, we have to describe the rock name. What is the name of the rock? If it's limestone, sandstone, clay, all this stuff. We have to say what about the person, because when you are drilling with the bit, maybe you are drilling, say 10 centimeter sand and 30 centimeter of clay. And so I have percent. And this percent, I have to say that this sample contain 20% sand, 80% clay stone, and I have to inform it what about the percent. The color. When you speak about the color, guys, for the color, maybe I give the color gray, and you give the color dark gray, and one other one say it's black. And so for the color, we have chart. This chart is called Munsell color chart to describe the color. We have to describe the hardness of the rock. We have to describe the grain or the crystal size. The size of the grain. If we are describe the sandstone, I have to describe this grain is fine or medium or very fine or coarse, or that's for the grain. But if you started to describe the limestone, limestone is not gray. The limestone is crystal. And so for the crystal size, I have to describe if the size is cryptocrystalline, microcrystalline, and so on. And so each one have different description, because in the sand is green, but for the limestone, the size will be crystals, no gray. I have to describe what's called the sorting. Sorting. What about the sorting? The sorting, how many size in the gray? Sorting, mainly we describe the sorting in the sand, because in the sand, maybe in the tray, I have more than one size. I have fine, or I have medium and fine, or I have medium and fine and coarse. And so it's called the sorting. I have to describe the sorting. I have to describe the roundness and the angularity. Roundness and angularity, what is the angularity of the cutting? What is the edges of the cutting? Is the cutting angular or rounded? What about the sphericity of the grain? If the grain is a sphere or not sphere? I have to describe what's called the matrix and cement. What is the matrix? What is the cement? This type, cement is chemical which is precipitated between the grain, of the sand, and this one is precipitated chemically. The matrix is deposited between the grain, but this one is deposited mechanically. That's the difference between matrix and cement, and all this description take a lot of time, and so I'll go very fast through it. We have to describe the oil shows. If we have any oil shows, we have to describe it in detail. Okay. Rock types, when we describe, we have to see what about the rock types. If sandstone, siltstone, clay stone, and others, that's in the clastic rock. And to differentiate between sand and silt and the clay, we have a scale. This scale is called the Wentworth scale. Wentworth scale. This one is used to differentiate between the clastic rock, sandstone, siltstone, according to the size. And so if you see here, you see the sand starting from very coarse to very fine, and depend on what? Depend on the size of the grain, and go to the silty and go to the clay according to the size. Carbonate rocks. What is the carbonate rocks? We have limestone and you have dolomite. evaporite rock, we have anhydrite, we have gypsum, and we have halite. Hours to finish the presentations. Just I need to differentiate between the carbonate rocks. If we have limestone and we have dolomite, if we have limestone and have dolomite, how can we differentiate between them? We have more than one steps. First one, if we take limestone, which is pure limestone, and adding hydrochloric acid, which is 10% hydrochloric acid, will be react very, very fast. The pure limestone, the effervescence will be very, very high, while the pure dolomite, the reaction will be no reaction or very, very low reaction. And so, if you need to differentiate between them, if we adding HCl 10% to the limestone pure, would be react very fast. For the limestone, okay, for the dolomite will not react till you heated the HCl. If I take some cutting from the dolomite and adding some HCl 10% and heated in the porcelain or the reaction plate, we'll see the dolomite will start to react with the HCl. That's first one, differentiate by HCl 10%. The second one, we can differentiate between limestone and the dolomite using alizarin red. Alizarin red, it's chemicals, as I mentioned before. This one, when we adding to the limestone, it will give red color, and so we'll differentiate and identify the limestone. The last one, to differentiate between limestone and the dolomite, we have an equipment. This equipment is called the calcimeter. This calcimeter, we take weight, definite weight from the dry sample. We take the limestone or the cutting, and this cutting will be dried in the oven and start to crushing like powder, and put it here in this jar and adding HCl and close this one. And so we react with the HCl, and from this device will give me what is the percent of the limestone and what is the percent of the dolomite. And so guys, very fast again, how can we differentiate between limestone and dolomite in the field? We can differentiate using HCl 10%. We can using the alizarin red to identify the limestone, and we can using what's called the calcimeter to give the percent, exactly the percent of the limestone and the percent of the dolomite. Okay, for the evaporite rock, how can you differentiate between anhydrite and the halite? We are drilling now, and we have some anhydrite and some halite. How can we differentiate? We have two ways. The first one, we take a cutting, say it's anhydrite, and this cutting, I put it in the watch glass and started to adding some hydrochloric acid, HCl 10%, and start to dissolve the cutting in the watch glass. After this, I start to heating using the hot plate, and after a while, when it's dry, take this watch glass and put it below the microscope. If below the microscope give me what is called a thicular break. What is the meaning of a thicular break? Below the microscope, we will see some needles, like the needle, exactly like the needles, which is precipitated due to what recrystallization of the anhydrite. Below the microscope, we will see some needles, crystal like needles, it meaning that it is anhydrite. If you check below the microscope and you see cubic shape, exactly, we have some cubic shape, is meaning that this rock is halite. And so we can using this test to differentiate between anhydrite and halite. The anhydrite give me a circular break, which is needle shape, and the halite will give me cubic crystal shape. The second one, for the sulfate test, we're using barium chloride. How can we do it? We take some cutting and put this cutting at test tube, and from the test tube, we're adding barium chloride as a solution and started to dissolve. Later, we will see some white precipitation in the test tube. If meaning is that this is an anhydrite. And so, guys, we'll go very fast through the rock types. We speak about clastic rock, which is sandstone, sandstone, siltstone, and the clay. and how can we divide it by Wentworth scale. And we speak about limestone and dolomite, how can we differentiate between. We speak about anhydrite and halite, and how can we differentiate in between. And so if you see below the microscope, we see like claystone, we see like sandstone, we see like mudstone or limestone, all of this stuff. What is the mud logger responsible for? He started to make a description for the sandstone and write the description as abbreviation to the customer at the mud log. Here, there's the description, and this is the formation itself. Okay, guys, I think it's time. Thank you. I hope it's this presentation will help you. And waiting for any question, please.
So someone asking about why gas trap is only one that can read the gas.
Okay. The gas trap for the mud logging unit, mainly some customer asking for two. One in the shell shaker, which is gas out, and we can using another one at the bedroom itself, which is gas in. But the mud logging unit, the only one which is using the gas trap and using the gas equipment. Because for this one, we're using a lot of gases, we're using hydrogen gases. We have a lot of equipment. This equipment have to be at the units, which is very cold because it's temperature. We don't need any high temperature. And so the only one which is responsible for reading the gases is the mud logging unit only. Sometimes at some rig, they have device. This device may reading the total gas only. You have some gases, but for the analysis and give the component and give the interpretation, no one can give this analysis except the mud logging only.
Okay, sir. So I have a second question. Someone asking about is mud logging report useful things for reservoir engineering analysis? What works in reservoir engineering are related to mud logging work?
Okay, for the mud logging, mainly, as I mentioned, give indication or give qualitative only evaluation for the reservoir. And so, from the description of the samples, if we have some sand and start to describe the sand, we have to describe what about the porosity of the sand is good or not, what about the grain size, what about the cementation. From all of this stuff, we can make qualitative evaluation for what about the type of the sand. Is the sand could be a gas reservoir or not? That's the first. Also from the gases analysis, we can say that we have a lot of gases here, is meaning that this reservoir may be good. We can describe the oil shows, and from the oil shows description, we can check what about the oil stain, we can check the fluorescence, we can check the stream cut. All of this give indication about the type of oil, and this oil is economical or not, but not quantitative, qualitative. And so for the reservoir engineer, of course, he have to take a look for our description or mud logger description and just take idea about the reservoir, and after this starting to working by another tools.
Okay, so the last question for today is someone asking about the lag time. Is it constant or changing during the drilling operation? I mean, whenever you go deeper in drilling, the lag time is changing or not?
Okay, I explain for the lag times, mainly I take a lot of time to explain it, and as an instructor, I take about 3 hours to explain. Believe me, I explain it very, very fast, and so just give me another 1 minute, please, to explain it again to answer these questions. Okay. For the lag time, if we see here, the time which are needing to moving the cutting or the gases or the mud volume of mud from the bottom to the surface, and what is the factor which affecting on the lag time? I can say that from the equation, from this equation, I can say what is the factor affecting on the time. And so from the first equation, I have here the inner diameter of the hole. If the inner diameter of the hole washed, is meaning that the lag time will be increasing. That's one factor. Second factor, what about the length? The length, what is the length? Is the depth. If the depth is increasing, is meaning that, of course, the lag time will be increasing. Okay? If we see here, what about the pump output? If the pump output is changed, it will affect on the lag time. If the pump rate is changed, is meaning that will affect on the lag time. And so, guys, just all the time I explain this one. When anyone asking any question, just please try to analyze the question. Why? If there is any equation, the equation will give me the answer directly. And so, for this question, Mr. Dr. Ahmed, for this question, if the depth increasing, logically, the lag time will be increasing. Why? Because the depth here or the length here factor to calculating the annular volume and so factor to calculating the lag time. And sorry for the lag time, I explain it very fast because the time is very tight, but believe me, it takes at least 3 hours to explain it in the courses.
Dr. Ashraf, thank you very much for the great webinar. It was really very informative, and I wish you would accept our invitation for more webinars in the near future. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm happy for this. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, everybody, have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will have, maybe within 1 hour, less than 1 hour, a second webinar with Dr. Susan Nash. So please wait for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you, guys.